Good afternoon, Opera House. It's absolutely fantastic to be here, and actually, I mean, such a iconic stage. And if I may, this is bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A-S. So now I can actually tell my mum that I actually performed at the Opera House. Thank you very much. But I'm sure none of you guys are here to watch me dance around like an idiot, so let's talk DMP. Let's talk the rollout of a DMP, the rollout of a DMP platform, or any platform. What do we think of? We may think of things like integrations. We may even think code deployment. So I thought this would be a really great place to start, really walk you through some code configurations and best practices. So I've got some audience manager code here. So we'll start from the top, work our way through, line by line. I'm joking, I'm absolutely joking. Because interestingly enough, when we speak about the DMP space, in my experience directly, a very minimal amount of time is actually spent in this area. And in fact, it's spent more on three other key areas, which I actually want to focus on today. The first, the idea of starting at the end. Second, one of my favorite taglines, one team, one dream. And finally, this idea of creating your own unicorns. We'll then finish up with some key takeaways from the session. So starting at the end, what do I mean by that? I mean, have a plan, have a purpose, have a dream. And what this means in business talk is vision, strategies, tactics. But there's a lot going on there, so let's keep things simple. Let's talk about use cases or use case statements. And for those of you who are not familiar with a use case statement, all they are is a very simple, non-technical statement which really just speaks to what your objective, what you're trying to achieve. So a good example of this might be something like, as a marketer, I want to suppress advertising from known customers so that I can minimize wastage and improve ROI on my prospecting spends. Just one example. But the benefit of starting with a use case is that we can very easily and quickly extract from that which audience we're interested in. And in turn, from that audience, we can extract which data points, and in turn, which data sources. So on that note, think strategy, think use case, or use cases. Now, if instead we take this the other way around, and instead focus first on the data, we could potentially fall into what we refer to, or what I refer to as falling down the rabbit hole of data. And as interesting and insightful it may be to look into your CRM data, your behavioral data, second, third-party data, we can spend days, weeks, months discussing that, but move no closer to value. So in that respect, think speed to value, think minimal viable product. And at the risk of contradicting myself, there may be scenarios in which the data sources you have access to define what sort of use case you can go for. So a good example of that, some FSIs in the audience may be aware that obtaining their CRM data for marketing purposes can be quite tricky, because it might mean going through the legal and the security team, which in turn adds additional time and maybe even cost to your internal project. So instead, it might be worth considering starting on the public website behavioral data. Compare this with a loyalty brand who might find it a lot easier to obtain their CRM data for their initial use cases, their MVP use cases. But the point remains, start at the end, start with a purpose, start with a use case. Very important. On to one team, one dream. So great, we've got our use cases, we know what we want to achieve, but many of you may have this question. Okay, one team, one dream, great, but what team? So let's talk org structures. And when I work with very successful small to medium-sized businesses who extract a lot of value from their DMP, what we typically see is this hub and spoke approach. So we've got our subject matter expert really servicing different parts of the business, whether that be the marketing or the personalization, the CRM, brand sales if you're a publisher, whatever the case may be. So now if we move more into an enterprise business, things that pivot from that, they instead evolve from that into more of a dandelion org structure. And now you see our subject matter expert has now grown into, for lack of a better term, a center of excellence. But still, the main purpose is then to service different parts of the organization. And as they enable the different teams through the organization, they in turn can help and support individuals and other teams, and so on, and so on. So this team might not be an actual team. It might instead be a virtual team, taking individuals from around the business to make up some form of virtual team. Where I have seen this fall over and fail sometimes, though, is if the individuals don't have time to really commit to the virtual team, or if KPIs are not aligned. So there's a lot of friction, pushing and pulling, nothing really comes to fruition. And lastly, whether a virtual team or an actual team, it's very important that this team can activate the audiences and the insights they get to, whether indirectly or directly. My last point on this slide is around partners. So a question might be, where do partners fit into this? So your media agencies, your digital agencies, consulting. It's kind of really wherever it makes sense, depending on your strategic partnerships. Maybe you've got gaps in your business, which partners do a great job in filling. One thing I would recommend against, though, don't outsource your center of excellence. That's a whole other conversation in itself, but the point remains, come on guys, it's your center of excellence, own it. Not a great argument, I know, but again, that's a whole other conversation. So that's great, we've got our use cases, we know what we want to try and achieve. We've got our one team, one dream, we've got our org structures, we start to understand how the team's gonna service the business. I don't know about you guys, I'm getting excited, I might do another dance, who knows? But now the next obvious question may be, okay, well, who's in this team? Who do we hire? Not just who we hire, but what do we hire? What sort of skill sets are we after? And unfortunately, despite DMP being 10 years old, these guys are pretty much unicorns in the market. Very hard to find these guys. So why is that? Well, let's take a look at the skill set that they may need to be successful in the role. First, they might be part digital marketer because they need to understand the business application of the audiences they're creating. Second, part analyst. They need to extract meaningful insight from the data. To actually obtain the data, they might have to be part technologist, understand how to deploy tags on page, work with mobile dev teams for SDK implementation, work with CRM teams to extract CRM files. And to get any value from that stuff, they might need to have a history or expertise in optimization or personalization. So as you can see, quite a varied skill set, and it's very, very tough to really find anyone strong in all of these key areas. So how do we address this? Well, this might not be one person. This might be one person who's very strong in 2, maybe 3 of these key areas, but then get some technical support from the technical the role within the team. Again, going back to that center of excellence paradigm. Or 2, this person may exist in your organization today. It might simply be a case of moving them into the right team and then investing in that person, upskilling them in the areas that they're currently lacking. So slowly as you invest in your people, your teams, your org structure, spend more time on your use cases, you'll find you'll naturally step through the maturity curve of audience management. Your SME will become more enabled, may grow into a center of excellence team. Your use cases may become a bit more intricate, moving from channel-focused use cases to more customer journey use cases. And lastly, as you step through this maturity curve, you get return on each step. maybe through efficiencies in ad spend or higher conversion rates through the on-site optimization, for which you can then invest back into the next step of your evolution to finally become an experience-driven organization. So then just to wrap up and go through some key takeaways. One, again, start at the end. Start with use cases. So think minimal viable product. Think speed to value. 2, one team, one dream. One team, one dream. Think hub and spoke. Think center of excellence. And lastly, create your own unicorns. So think investment in people. And if you think back to that quadrant slide with the skill set, at no point did I mention must be an expert in audience manager or an admin or a super admin of the platform. That's the easy part. We can teach you that in a day or two. So think the right person, not necessarily the right CV. I hope you enjoy the rest of your experience today. Thank you very much for the time. Really appreciate it. Thank you.